Hello my soccer universe, to a review of an absolutely mad, crazy and slightly weird weekend. You know, weekends between two European rounds usually are like that. And it also extends to my two favorite teams that I've covered in separate videos. LASK getting a home win, last minute, should be elated, really wasn't. Milan also get a comeback win from 2 goals down, which you can watch here. And I was also not too elated about it. So a 6-point weekend that doesn't count for much tells you how weird this weekend was. But in this video, the biggest storyline has to be the Bundesliga, where all 3 Champions League teams lost at home, 2 of them wearing specialty jerseys, which is always a reason to lose a game because you're exposing yourself a little bit more to the opposition. But this has barely ever happened in the Bundesliga, that the top 3 teams are losing at home. And it's a common thread. Champions League and Europa League teams did not perform well this round because they're all saving themselves for the return legs. You saw, for instance, Atletico Madrid losing at home, Real Madrid not performing well either, Liverpool not performing well, Arsenal not performing well, and on and on and on and on. I would say let's dig right into a truncated round in the Eredivisie. Again, the Eredivisie gave the European fighters a round off, so Feyenoord and AZ were not playing, which meant that all the others had a chance to actually increase their distance, and we saw mostly favorite wins. PSV, for instance, get a 2-1 home win against Heerenveen, having a 2-0 lead through Saibari and Hustil, and then Snans in the 72nd pulls one back. Utrecht got a rather exciting 3-2 away win at Willem II. They were 1-0 down at the halftime. Then Sebastian Aller and Ohio turned around by the 75th minute. However, Sigurðsson gets the equalizer for Willem II in the 83rd minute. However, it was not a point for Willem II, as Blake just 2 minutes later reestablishes the lead for Utrecht. The informed team at the moment, the Go Ahead Eagles, also get a 3-2 away win at Nijmegen, leading 2-0 and 3-1. So it was a much clearer game than the final scoreline might suggest. Ajax also continued to win, however, again continued to win in an unimpressive fashion. They win thanks to a Kenneth Taylor penalty in the 61st minute at Zwolle. However, in the form they're in and with the distance that they have ahead of PSV, it looks like it is their year. And Twente also get a 1-0 win over last place Almere City. It's a Stein goal in the 19th minute, overall deserved, and with that they at least temporarily overtake Feyenoord and move into 4th place. What a mad Bundesliga weekend. It started out with Mainz beating Gladbach 3-1 away from home and moving, at least they thought, temporarily into 3rd place. However, they hold on because we saw one of the craziest Saturdays with all 3 big teams that are still in the Champions League all losing, and all losing at home. It started out with Leverkusen saving tons of the starters for the return leg against Bayern Munich, finding themselves down already in the 7th minute through Austrian Romano Schmid, being largely outplayed. So Xabi Alonso needs to bring on the cavalry, Florian Wirtz, Palacios, Mukiele. However, just 15 minutes later, Florian Wirtz has to come off with an injury. He's out until April, so really bad news. And then Jinma adds a 2nd goal for Bremen in stoppage time for a famous win and a slight turnaround for Bremen. Bayern did likewise, saving the starters and playing with a 2nd string squad. However, it seemed like smooth sailing on the run out for those beautiful anniversary jerseys for Bayern. I absolutely love the kid in the red and then with the white pants as well. Guerrero scoring 2 goals by the 28th minute. Gnabry even saw a penalty put on the post, so it was really all going one way. However, then Medic in the 31st minute pulls one back for Bochum, and then Haline is sent off in the 42nd minute by stamping on an opponent. And then in the second half it fell all apart for Bayern, who concede the equalizer in the 51st through Sissoko. Then the cavalry comes on, Kane, Olise, Lima, Musiala. However, it's a man less, and it's Bero in the 71st minute. They get Bochum a really famous 3-2 away win at Bayern. And like Bayern, Dortmund also debuted a specialty jersey, very much in neon. However, that was the only bright spot for Dortmund in the entire game. Outplayed by Augsburg, an Augsburg team that has been relegation threatened earlier this year, but has been keeping up the points and is more or less close to safety. Gubelow gave them in the 23rd minute the go-ahead goal. Then in the second half, both teams had goals disallowed, but Augsburg were very good for these 3 points. Almost nothing from Dortmund. The only top team that picked up points were actually Stuttgart, a 2-2 at Kiel. And unlike Bayern, they actually managed to equalize with a man less. They took the lead through leveling. Skripski then equalizes before the half, right after the half. He gives Kiel a lead, but then Stergio is sent off for Stuttgart. But 3 minutes later, Demirovic gets the equalizer. A result that barely keeps Stuttgart in the running for a European spot. And it seems like Wolfsburg have also plateaued. They managed only a 1-1 at home to St. Pauli, who score a goal in the 38th minute through Van der Heijden after a long drought of not scoring a goal, and very late on, 71st minute, Amura gets the Wolves the equalizer. The evening game between Freiburg and Leipzig was a really boring 0-0 draw. Both teams stay around the Champions League spots. After the win in Amsterdam, Frankfurt also saved some starters, however had a 1-0 halftime lead through Batshuayi in the 13th minute. And curiously enough, when then the big boys came on, it is then that Union turned the game around. Querfeld in the 62nd minute, Austrian getting his first goal for Union Berlin, and then Jung Woo Young in the 78th minute getting the winner. A goal for Hollerbach was disallowed. Etitike then had in the 95th minute a chance to equalize, however his penalty is also saved. And the round then ended with a 1-1 draw between Hoffenheim and Heidenheim that really didn't help anyone. The Mika Bireth scoring streak has stopped for Monaco. However, he gets the assist for Minamino's go-ahead goal in the 17th minute. It's not enough for Monaco to get a win to keep them even in better position for the Champions League spot, as Magri in the 91st minute equalizes for Toulouse. PSG continue to be the class of the league, completely dominant all over. 4-1 away win at Stade Rennais. Barcola and Ramos scoring the first 2 goals. Then Brassier pulls one back, and late on Ousmane Dembélé adds 2 more in garbage time. Lille also had a good showing at last place Montpellier, getting only a 1-0 win through a Jonathan David goal in the 50th minute. However, that win very much keeps him in contention for another Champions League spot. On the flip side, OM lose at home with the last kick of the game to Lens, who had 4 losses in a row as far as I know. El Ainoui getting that win, and paired with the win of PSG, none of my simulations now have PSG not winning the title, so more or less a done deal. Strasbourg are also the last team to remain in contention for European spots. They get a 1-0 away win at Nantes with Le Marchal scoring the winning goal in the 79th minute. And then on Sunday evening, OL got a huge 2-0 away win against Nice. They saved a few players and were completely outplayed for about 60-65 minutes. However, then Ryan Cherki comes on in the 77th minute, and with his first touch after an Almada interception, scores the go-ahead goal, and then Nuamar, who also had just come on, scores the second goal. So the substitutes get OL the big 2-0 win, which also keeps them very much in the running for a Champions League spot. However, Paulo Fonseca has been suspended for 9 months. Maybe that got the squad a little bit closer together. Many things in the Premier League look already decided. I mean, the championship can be more or less handed already to Liverpool, and also the bottom 3, so the relegation places, are also more or less decided. However, the race for the Champions League spots is very much on, and it extends to top 5 in this case, and there are quite a few contenders there. Nottingham Forest, though, is more or less a certainty to return to the Champions League, or this would be the maiden voyage in the Champions League. However, as 2 times European Cup winners, that's the same competition. They beat Manchester City at home 1-0 through a late Hudson-Odoi strike. Brighton also remain in that race thanks to a 2-1 home win against Fulham, a comeback win as Raul Jimenez had given Fulham the lead. However, Brighton then in the second half really turned on and win it through a late João Pedro penalty. Crystal Palace also continued their impressive streak, winning 1-0 at home to Ipswich thanks to a very late Sarr goal. And then Liverpool do not convince at all at home against Southampton. Last place Southampton, the team that is probably going to beat the record of Derby County. 1-0 down at the halftime break to a small bone goal. However, Darwin Núñez, who potentially could have been sent off, gets the equalizer in the 51st minute, and then 2 Salah penalties seal the deal. Villa also vault themselves back into the race for the European spots thanks to a 1-0 away win at Brentford. Ollie Watkins getting the winning goal in the 49th minute. A Rogers goal a little bit later was also disallowed. Overall, I think a convincing performance for once from Villa. And then in the late game, it's a 1-1 draw between Wolves and Everton. Not much consequences because neither team will get relegated, although they're both hanging very, very low. with a 1-0, a narrow 1-0 win over Leicester, the former club of current Chelsea coach Maresca. Chelsea actually go back into 4th place, and that despite Cole Palmer missing a penalty in the 22nd minute. However, Cucurella gets the winning goal in the 60th. Probably the most entertaining match came at Spurs, where Bournemouth had a fully deserved 2-0 lead through Tavernier and Evan Nielsen, and a Justin Kluivert goal was also disallowed for offside. However, Sarr, just 2 minutes after the 2-0, pulls one back, and then a Son penalty gets Spurs a lucky 2-2 draw. The big name matchup between United and Arsenal was really not much to talk home about. United took the lead through a Bruno Fernandes free kick just before the halftime break. Then Arsenal, who had more possession but rather dull up front, get the equalizer through Rice in the 74th minute. The gap towards Liverpool extends, and so Arsenal will finish safely in the Champions League spots. However, the title is gone. And then on Monday evening, Newcastle also get a 1-0 win at West Ham. West Ham actually did have quite a few chances in the first half. However, then Bruno Guimaraes in the 63rd minute gives Newcastle the winner. There were a few more chances as well. In the end, I think Newcastle deserved the 3 points, and they're also very much in contention for the top 5. The La Liga title race might be the most exciting in all of Europe. However, on Saturday evening, tragedy struck when Barcelona team doctor was found dead in his hotel room, meaning that the Barcelona game had to be postponed, which would have given Barcelona a huge chance to actually extend the lead on top of the table. However, the two Madrid teams, who are very much in between their big derby in the Champions League, had little Madrid derbies as well. And Atletico Madrid, in their easiest game this month, managed to lose 2-1 against Getafe, despite having a 1-0 lead in the 75th minute through a Sørloth penalty. A whole lot of nothing before that. But then Correa gets sent off in the 88th minute for a high boot against the shin. Yeah, it was one of those. And then from that kickoff, Arambiri scores the equalizer, and he actually gets then also the winner. Huge loss for Atletico Madrid. That in turn allowed Real Madrid to overtake him with a 2-1 home win against Rayo. But boy, was this a tight game. Mbappe and Vini Jr. actually gave Real Madrid the 2-0 lead in the 30th and 34th minute. Diaz pulls one back. Mbappe should have settled it, and then the Real Madrid were hanging on. Whistles at the Bernabeu despite a win. However, they are now in second spot, level on points with Barcelona. In the other game, Celta keep the dreams of Europe alive, beating Leganés 2-1 at home, coming back, but they turned around already in the first half. Alaves also hang on literally to a 1-0 home win against Villarreal. Sanchez in the 11th minute gave them the lead. Then Sivera and Blanco is sent off. 15 minutes of added time. However, they hold on to that huge 1-0 win. It might give them a chance for survival. That also means that it was even more a must-win for Valencia at home against Valladolid. Goals by Lopez and Sadiq secure the 3 points, and Valencia actually look on a path of survival at the moment. Betis also continued a really good run, a 1-0 home win against Las Palmas. Llorente getting the winning goal, and an Isco penalty is missed in the stoppage time. Probably due to Europa League action coming up, Bilbao only managed a 1-1 at home to Mallorca, a team that had eliminated them last year from the Copa del Rey. Rayo in the 56th minute gave Mallorca lead. However, Nico Williams in the 58th gets the equalizer, but there's no winner for Athletic Club. And the other Basque team also did not have a good performance, losing at home to Sevilla. Ejuke scoring the goal in the 46th minute, so right after the halftime break. A result that, crazy enough, keeps Sevilla also in the running for that Conference League spot. And then on Monday evening, the Catalan derby between Espanyol and Girona ends in a 1-1 draw. Stuani getting the equalizer through an 88th minute penalty. No big twists in the title race in Portugal, as both Lisbon teams get wins at home. Benfica started out with a 3-0 home win over Nacional. Amdouni already getting a goal in the 5th minute, and then 2 penalties by Kökçü in the first half and Pavlidis in the second half make it a rather resounding scoreline. Dudu actually had a penalty missed late in the first half. And then Sporting, who have a game more, retake the lead in the table, winning the local derby against Casapia 3-1. Ignacio and Gyökeres already in the first half. An own goal by Esgaio makes it a little bit tighter, but Gyökeres with a penalty in the 77th secures the 3 points for the Lions. In the battle for third place, Braga got a pretty big 1-0 home win over Porto, so they're level again on points after losing last week. Horta getting the winning goal in the 17th minute. And Vitória also stay alive in their quest for 5th spot, which potentially means Conference League, winning 2-1 away from home at Boavista, last place Boavista. It hurts to see that. They were 1-0 down at the halftime break, but in the second half, a own goal and a penalty by Thiago Silva turned it around. So those were my thoughts on this absolutely mad weekend. Please let me know what you thought about this weekend. Did your team at least win? I would be happy to hear about that. In any case, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these, and I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!